Hey there, ready to step onto the factory floor? Well, virtually speaking. You've got that sectional belt mold assembler interview lined up, so congrats. We're going to dive deep into RoleCatcher's treasure trove of intel to help you absolutely crush it.
That's right. We're going way beyond just like, what is the job today?
Right.
Think of it as your insider's guide to what those interviewers are really after those common pitfalls, and how to make your answers really sing.
Music to my ears. Because I bet knowing how to, spot a faulty V-belt is only half the battle, right?
Exactly.
What about showcasing your skills in a way that makes you, unforgettable?
Exactly. We're talking about painting that picture so vividly that they can practically see you already in that role, rocking it. And luckily, RoleCatcher has this amazing bank of real interview questions that we can kind of dive into and practice with.
Okay, so let's unpack this. First up, RoleCatcher flagged. Describe your experience in assembling sectional belt molds. Seems straightforward enough, but I'm guessing there's a catch.
You're right to be wary. It's easy to kind of fall into that trap of just listing tasks like you're reading off a to-do list. But what they're really craving is a glimpse into your process. So have you worked with, similar machinery? What about precision tasks? Anything that really demonstrates that dexterity and that sharp eye for detail that this job really demands.
Okay, so even if I haven't worked with the specific machine, I could draw on, say, my experience with model building, showing those transferable skills.
Yeah, you're getting it. And don't forget those soft skills, teamwork, problem solving, especially under pressure. Those are absolute gold in a manufacturing environment. Have you ever had to troubleshoot a faulty part on a project or?
That reminds me of this time I was building a bookshelf and the pre-drilled holes were all off. Total chaos. But I figured it out,
Yep.
even learned a new technique that day. With that kind of story work,
Absolutely. It shows adaptability, a willingness to learn, music to an interviewer's ears. But back to RoleCatcher for a sec. Their AI can actually analyze your answers and compare them against successful responses for similar roles. It's like having a secret weapon.
okay, that's seriously cool. Now, next question. How do you ensure that the sectional belt molds you assemble meet quality standards? This feels like a minefield. One wrong step and boom.
Don't worry, we'll navigate this together. Remember, quality impacts everything. Safety, the company's reputation, it all kind of boils down to the work that you do. They want to know that you're a stickler for detail.
So I just follow the rules isn't going to cut it, huh?
Not even close. Think about specific quality control procedures that you've used in the past. Maybe you've worked with calipers, gauges, or even visual inspection checklists. Even mentioning a time that you spotted a flaw and you corrected it shows that you're proactive.
Oh, like that time I noticed a crack in a ceramic piece I was making. I could have just, ignored it, but instead I stopped, reassessed, and salvaged the whole thing.
Perfect example. Now you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And here's where RoleCatcher's AI can really fine-tune your delivery. It might suggest industry standard terminology, like using tolerance levels instead of just saying, making sure it's the right size.
It's like having, a personal stylist, but for job interviews.
Eh.
Speaking of which, let's move on to how do you ensure that the sectional belt molds are assembled within the given time frame? Time management, always a fun one.
But also the hallmark of a true professional. This question is screaming, are you organized? Can you prioritize? Can you deliver?
Okay, so instead of just saying, I'm a master juggler, I should share a time when I'd successfully, manage multiple projects, maybe even mentioning tools that I use to stay organized.
Now you're thinking strategically. Did you ever have to adapt to a sudden change in priorities? How did you handle it? Those real-life examples bring your skills to life.
And I can even mention how I use RoleCatcher to track my progress as I practice all these answers. It's like having a personal cheerleader always in your corner.
Absolutely. And speaking of facing challenges, let's tackle this question. How do you handle unexpected problems or issues during the assembly process?
Because, let's be honest, nothing ever goes perfectly,
Right.
especially in a fast-paced environment like manufacturing.
You got that right. This question is all about gauging your problem-solving skills when the heat is on.
Right.
They want to know you can stay cool, think on your feet, and find that solution.
Okay, so how much honesty is too much honesty? I don't want to sound like I've never encountered, a jammed machine or a missing part, but I also don't want to come across as, incompetent,
That's a great point. It's not about pretending that you're perfect.
Right.
Everyone makes mistakes,
Yeah.
right? It's about how you recover. That's what truly counts.
Okay.
Did you consult the manual? Did you loop in a supervisor, maybe a colleague with more experience?
That reminds me of this one time I was trying to fix my bike. Total disaster.
Yeah.
But instead of giving up, I watched a bunch of tutorials, took things apart, put it back together. It took all day, but I learned a ton, and eventually I fixed it.
See, that story shows initiative, resourcefulness, a willingness to learn from your mistakes,
Yeah.
all very valuable traits. And RoleCatcher's AI can actually help you structure this kind of anecdote to really hit those problem-solving keywords that interviewers love.
It's like having a personal editor making sure my story lands perfectly. Okay, next question. Describe a time you had to work under tight deadlines. Ooh, the pressure.
But pressure can forge diamonds, my friend. This is your chance to showcase those organizational skills, that ability to prioritize, and your dedication to quality even when the clock is ticking.
It's funny you should say that because just last week I had this crazy deadline for a project, and I made a super detailed schedule, even broke down those big tasks into smaller chunks.
Now you're talking. And did you use any specific tools, a timer, a productivity app, even just good old-fashioned to-do lists? Those details add color and credibility to your story.
Ooh, that's a good point. I actually use this time tracking app that really helps me stay on track. And speaking of staying on track, let's move on to question 6. How do you ensure that the sectional belt molds are assembled safely and according to safety standards? Safety first? Always a good policy.
You nailed it. But this one goes deeper than just kind of like rattling off the rules.
Yeah.
It's about demonstrating a genuine commitment to safety, yours and everyone around you.
Okay, so instead of I always follow the rules, which, let's be real, can sound a bit robotic,
Right.
I should maybe talk about specific safety protocols I've followed in the past.
Now you're cooking. Have you worked with like power tools, heavy machinery, mentioning things like safety glasses, gloves, steel-toed boots? It shows that you understand the importance of that gear.
Yeah, for sure. And what about going above and beyond? Like that time I pointed out a frayed electrical cord that could have been dangerous. Wasn't even really my responsibility, but
Yeah.
I figured it was better to be safe than sorry, right?
Excellent example. It shows that you are proactive, you are responsible, and you genuinely value a safe work environment. And remember, RoleCatcher can help you showcase those safety certifications that you've earned.
No, yeah.
Those can be real deal makers.
It's like RoleCatcher saying, hey, interviewer, check out these safety skills.
Yeah.
Okay, on to question 7. What skills do you possess that make you a suitable candidate for this position? This feels a bit like a free-for-all.
It might seem that way, but it's actually a golden opportunity to really draw those lines between your skills and what they're looking for. Like, what are the key responsibilities, those desired traits they highlighted in the job description?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So no need to list every skill under the sun. I should be focusing on what matters most to them. So like if they emphasize precision and attention to detail, I should like highlight those skills.
You got it. But remember, I'm detail-oriented is just words.
Right.
Back it up with the story. A project you nailed. A time you spotted a tiny error that saved the day,
Like that time I had to proofread this massive document, hundreds of pages. I could have just skimmed it, but I took my time, and sure enough, I found a bunch of errors that could have been really embarrassing.
Perfect. You've shown that you're not just like claiming to have the skill. You've actually used it successfully in a relevant situation.
Right, right.
And RoleCatcher can even analyze your CV and cover letter,
Wow.
suggesting tweaks to make those keywords really shine. Think of it as a personal branding boost.
It's like RoleCatcher's giving me a little nudge and saying, hey, make sure they see this awesome skill. All right, next question. How do you ensure that the sectional belt molds are assembled according to customer specifications? Sounds pretty straightforward.
It does, but it's really about understanding that quality work means meeting those specific needs, those little details that make the customer happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just about building a great product. It's about building the right product for that specific client.
Exactly. And this question assesses your ability to interpret instructions, pay attention to the nitty-gritty, and deliver that final product that aligns with what they envisioned.
So I could talk about a time when I followed a really detailed blueprint or maybe a complex recipe.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be work-related, right?
Yeah.
As long as it demonstrates my ability to follow instructions and get those details right.
You're catching on quick.
Okay?
It's all about connecting the dots for the interviewer.
Right.
Now imagine you're in that interview and they ask you this question. You could say something like, I understand that each belt mold has unique specifications, and I'm meticulous about following those to the letter.
I'm like a hawk when it comes to technical drawings and using those precision measuring tools.
Now you're talking. You've shown that you understand the job, you're detail-oriented, and you value accuracy.
And accuracy plus efficiency equals one happy interviewer.
There you go.
Speaking of efficiency, Let's move on to question 9. How do you ensure that the sectional belt molds are assembled efficiently? I can already feel the pressure of that production line.
Yeah.
All about that fast-paced environment, right? Every second counts when you're trying to keep up with the production line.
You're absolutely right. This question is digging into your ability to work quickly and effectively, but never sacrificing quality.
Right.
It's a balancing act for sure.
Okay, so how do I convince them that I'm like the ultimate efficiency guru? Should I talk about how I organize my workspace, or maybe mention those times when I've actually timed myself to like improve?
Those are great examples. Have you ever spotted a bottleneck in a process and then come up with a better way of doing things? Maybe even suggested like a time-saving improvement to your team.
That reminds me of this one time when I was working on a group project in school, and we were on this crazy deadline, and it felt like we were getting bogged down in this one task. And I suggested we try this, like new project management app, and it totally changed the game.
Yeah.
We ended up finishing ahead of schedule.
That's a perfect example of how a real-life story can really showcase those efficiency skills. You identified a problem, proposed a solution, and achieved measurable results.
It's like that old saying, work smarter, not harder.
There you go.
And speaking of working smarter, let's move on to our final interview question. What steps do you take to ensure that the sectional belt molds are assembled accurately?
Accuracy. The other half of that dynamic duo we were just talking about. This is your chance to shine a light on those meticulous habits, those systems you've developed to make sure your work is always flawless.
It's time to channel my inner perfectionist.
Yes.
So I can talk about my trusty checklists, or maybe how I use a specific order of operations to like minimize errors.
Exactly. Think about how you approach each task. Do you have a system for double checking? Maybe you take extra care with measurements and alignment.
I'm also a big fan of that measure twice, cut once philosophy. I'd much rather take the time to get it right the first time around than have to go back and fix mistakes later.
That's a great attitude to have. And it shows that you understand the importance of accuracy in this role. Remember, you're not just building any belt mold, you're building one that needs to meet specific standards and function perfectly.
It's all about taking pride in your work and striving for that top-notch quality. So to recap, when you're answering this question, it's important to highlight those meticulous habits and systems you've developed to maintain accuracy.
Exactly. And don't forget to mention any proactive steps that you take to, prevent errors in the first place.
Right.
It really shows that extra level of commitment to quality.
This has been incredibly helpful. But before we wrap things up, I have to know, how can RoleCatcher take all this amazing prep work to the next level?
Think of RoleCatcher as your secret weapon in the interview process. Their AI analyzes tons of interview questions and successful responses, giving you a leg up on what interviewers are looking for.
It's like having a crystal ball, but for job interviews. So instead of just giving like a generic answer, I can tailor my responses to match exactly what they're looking for.
You got it. It's not just about what you say, but how you say it. RoleCatcher's AI can even analyze your tone and delivery, helping you project that confidence and enthusiasm that interviewers love.
Because let's be honest, a little bit of enthusiasm can go a long way. It's about showing them that you're genuinely interested in the role and ready to hit the ground running.
Absolutely. Enthusiasm can be contagious, and it helps you stand out from the crowd.
It's like RoleCatcher saying, hey, we got your back. Go in there and shine.
Exactly. So to wrap things up, remember that preparation is key. Take the time to understand the role, craft those answers, and let your personality shine through. And if you want that extra edge, RoleCatcher is your secret weapon. Their AI-powered platform can help you build the perfect resume, cover letter, and nail those interview responses. Go out there and crush it.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah.
And hey, let us know how you do. Until next time.